100 years ago, the sky was split in two, and dungeons full of monsters appeared. Normal weapons were no match for them, so only those with supernatural abilities, the Awakened, could destroy them. Thanks to their skills, the world was able to stabilize and civilizations began to thrive. Some of the Awakened became hunters, whose job was to fight the monsters. 10 years later, the mechanisms of Awakened was discovered, and anyone with money could become one. This marked the beginning of the era of hunters, so to deal with the problem, the Pro Hunter exam was created limited only to those who had passed an active test. This led to the creation of the Hunters Academies, institutions that prepare people for those exams. Meet our protagonist, Kim, a 27-year-old natural-born Awakened with power more significant than the rest. For the past 9 years, he has been working hard to pay off his parents' debt, which they incurred after an accident. His friends often ask him how his savings for the academies are going, as official hunters must pass the famous exam. Kim has finally managed to save enough to attend a cheap academy for a year. One day, Kim sees an advertisement for an unknown academy where many have passed the exam. The teachers have names similar to mythological beings, such as the Monkey King, who can end a mountain with his cane. Kim is tempted, but the registration fee is almost all the money he has. He puts the matter aside, believing it was a scam. After finishing his work, Kim is happily on his way home when a monster falls on him, causing serious injuries that require surgery. His boss does not take care of the matter, leaving Kim with only a few bills after the surgery. Suddenly, he receives a message from the Ascension Academy, asking for the only money he has gone to register. When he accepts, an envelope magically fills out, and a tiny being appears from his phone. The being introduces himself as Mentor, the former teacher of Odysseus, a Greek hero. He reveals that the academy is not for hunters, but for transcendents, who are superior. The Mentor shows Kim a survey to choose which fields he wants to transcend, and realizes that Kim wants to use a spear as his dominant weapon. To do so, Kim must first be emotionally well, so Mentor recommends he take some courses with the Buddha. And so, Kim embarks on a tremendous journey. A week later, our protagonist's recovery was impressive. He had only completed a fraction of the course. Confident in the outcome of his class, the young man decided to take a combat course with Chiron, the centaur with the torso of a human and the lower body of a horse, the teacher of almost all the Greek heroes. As a task, the protagonist had to do a routine similar to Saitama's, but he thought it was too much and decided to omit it. However, he soon realized that he wouldn't be able to continue any course if he didn't complete the task, so he got down to work, doing all the exercises to the best of his abilities. As the days passed, the protagonist got used to the routine. In the news, he saw a group of hunters defeat a very strong monster. His neighbor, an elderly lady, asked him if he was also a hunter since she saw him training so often. Kim answered that he would be soon, but he was interrupted by a gentleman who told him that it was impossible, that he should give up. The protagonist ignored his advice and decided to become a hunter. Meanwhile, a girl who didn't seem to like the idea of being a hunter killed an incredible amount of monsters. After 2 weeks hospitalized, Kim finally returns home. Here, he realizes that he has no money, so he decides to return to his old job. He also reviews again his lessons, and Chiron tells him that now he will develop his 5 senses. These are essential for combat, but there is one even more important, the 6th sense, which Kim gives certain indications. Later, while he was doing his job carrying things, he decides to take advantage of a few moments to do his exercises, realizing that by carrying more weight on him, each exercise counts as if he had done it 3 times as much. So he takes the opportunity to carry as much as he can. This way, he can earn money while doing his homework. Having extra time, Kim decides to take more lessons. One of them was the hegemonic King Xing-Yu, a man of overwhelming power. He teaches him how to use the spear, but only says a couple of things and leaves him as a task to wield a spear 5,000 times. In Kim's work appears a girl named Park Se-yoon. She was the granddaughter of the sword star Park Min-chul, who, during the time when monsters were more dangerous and used to roam the streets, this Awakened was one of the people who returned civilization to the world. At that time, one of the monsters that were mobilizing awakens and attacks the companion of our protagonist. On the other hand, Park Seon-yu shares a bit of her past with us. Everyone expected her to be like her grandfather, so she was trained to be a hunter from a young age, even though her dream was to become a teacher. When she was older, she found an academy, but it quickly ran out of students because everyone assumed her grandfather would teach there. Now, she seeks to have at least one student who is worth her time. Returning to our protagonist, he is paralyzed to see that the monster attacking them is a manticore, a 4-star monster that even professional hunters find it difficult to face. Kim has no choice but to take on the monster, so he grabs a metal rod and attacks, giving his partner time to escape. When fear begins to take over, he remembers the lessons Buddha taught him and propels himself through the air, finding a weak spot in his enemy. At that moment, he remembers the lessons of Xiangju and trusts that his blow can split a mountain. With confidence, he launches a powerful attack, splitting the manticore in half, a sight that everyone in the area, especially the hunter, witnesses. Kim was surprised to find that a simple worker like him had been able to defeat a monster of such high level. As he left work, he realized that his progress in his courses had increased significantly. Using what he had learned on the battlefield had made progress faster, so he decided to apply for a Hunter Academy to get a temporary license. At that moment, Park Seon-yu approached him and asked to talk. She proposed that he join her academy, offering him many advantages, and the best part was that she wouldn't charge him anything, only asking that he attend several competitions in her academy's name before the Hunter exams. Seeing Kim's potential, he accepted the offer. The next day, Park Seon-yoon gave him his temporary license and a new spear. They entered a dungeon where Kim had to fight against monsters called kobolds, humanoid rats. He demonstrated his skills easily, dodging his enemies and eliminating them with a single blow. Excitedly begins to skill as many as he can, because eliminating them not only earns points in their courses but also money. That night, as he reviewed his earnings from the dungeons, Kim thought about enrolling in a paid course to become as strong as the legendary Monkey King. But when he saw the price tag of 27 million, decided to invest in some equipment instead. He found mythical objects in the weapons store, and eventually settled on an expensive spear of Longinus. The next day, the girl told the young man he had to participate in academic competitions, where different academies competed to prove their superiority. There were 4 levels to climb, so the academies always sent their best students. Points were earned in the dungeons and in students' fights. Kim asked to fight Soo-young since the main character had never fought a hunter. The fight began, and the difference in levels was quickly apparent, which disappointed the girl. She tried to end the confrontation with one blow, but the main character blocked it, saying he was ready to fight seriously now. Then his attacks became faster and stronger, and it turns out that playing weak was part of his strategy to take his opponents by surprise, something that left Seo-jung shocked, but the young man still ended up losing. As his combat experience was remarkable, Kim then asked to train with the girl, as being a higher rank would help him gain more experience. He also learned that if he won the competition, he would receive a prize of about $100,000, exactly what the Spirit of Longinus costs. The tournament was in 2 weeks, so the protagonist started to train like crazy. 2 weeks flew by, and the day of the tournament arrived. In the participants' room, Kim saw that all of them were strong and had shiny weapons, except for him, who was wearing low-quality stuff. He felt identified with other boy, so he tried to talk to him. He introduced himself as Lee Mingi, and they both talked while a few meters away from them. An argument broke out, but was calmed down by Lee Jun-won, the current winner of the tournament. It turns out that Jun-won had also been requested for the senior Academy, but seeing that it was not well known, he rejected the offer and now regretted it. The competition began and our protagonist went for the first test, a race in a dungeon labyrinth. The goal was simple: find the exit while hunting the monsters that were there. Jun-won opened it and passed without any problem. Kim, on the other hand, was analyzing the best way out of the maze. With the help of the advice of Theseus and his sixth sense, along the way, he heard repeatedly as participants were being eliminated, clearly by their confrontations with monsters, so he deduced that his intuition was helping him to avoid the monsters. His excitement was interrupted by Lee, who had been following him and considering him a comrade for walking in a similar situation. The protagonist decided not to pay much attention to him until he learned that the boy also had no parents and the only family he had left was his sister. Both went through the maze with Kim confident of every step he took until they reached a dead end, which turned out to be a door to the end of the maze. After the event, everyone was shocked that the stranger had passed the test so quickly. Junhwa simply said that it was pure luck. The second event was announced, a 1v1 fight, and most of the participants withdrew in fear of facing Junhwa, leaving only 5 people in the competition. Seonjun, who was incognito, heard in the betting area that there would be a few participants and that they would likely bet on Junhwa. Suddenly, a mysterious person bet $1 million on our protagonist. The first match began, with Dokchul attacking until he ran out of breath, but Kim dodged every attack as if it were nothing, and in a fit of rage, Dokchul drew his strongest attack, but Kim blocked it and with his improvised spear, ending the battle. The next fight was between Junhwan and Lee. When Lee saw Junhwan, he thought that he would be an easy target. The fight began and Junhwan attacked mercilessly, leaving Lee on the ground in a few seconds. Lee lamented his weakness, but then got up, motivated by wanting to be like Kim. The battle ended with Lee on the ground, but he had managed to make a small cut. The battle between Junhwan and Kim began with Junhwan attacking ferociously. At first, Kim was intimidated by his strength, but then he concentrated and connected a blow. Junhwan was surprised to see that Kim's aura was not that of a prey, but of a predator. He was even more surprised when he saw that every time he blocked, Kim became more skillful. Junhwan filled his sword with mana, which put the protagonist in trouble since he hadn't yet mastered this power, but then he remembered his master's word to keep fighting even if he could lose. Both were charged with power, and at the time of the impact, a large cloud of dust formed. In the distance, Seonjun was amazed at how quickly Kim had filled his spear with mana. The mysterious guy was also surprised and then vanished. Later, the young man spoke to the competition's organizer, who informed him that he had broken multiple rules. So the guy who hadn't even fought ended up winning first place. At least, the main character was glad that his curse percentage had improved. At that moment, Lee arrived to say goodbye and asked if he could be like Kim someday, if he worked hard. The main character answered that it would be difficult, but he shouldn't be obsessed with being a hunter. He could be good at other things too. The boy thanked him, but before leaving, Kim told him not to let anyone convince him to abandon his dreams. If he wanted to do something, he should do it. With tears in their eyes, their friends said goodbye, promising to meet again. On the way, Kim suggested to Seonjun that she should have invited the boy to her academy, leaving her thoughtful. Continuing with her business, she told him that for his effort, she would give him a new weapon, so they went to a workshop that her grandfather usually visited. Speaking of the old man, he was meditating until he was interrupted by one of his workers, who was having a good time for having done that. The guy informed him that his granddaughter had participated in the academy tournament with his new recruit. Full of curiosity, the old man said that he would visit him personally. The next day, we discovered that Kim hadn't bought any spear at all. All weapons seemed normal to him after seeing one made by the Transcendents. Plus, when he went back to check its price, it realized that it had gone up. It turns out that this varies depending on how hard he tries. Kim then asked Seonju about mana cultivation, a technique that allowed him to effectively use that power, and each hunter has a unique and different technique. While Seonjun went to talk to his grandfather, the young man decided to take it upon himself to master the mana and to see how useful it could be. As a first task, he was to manifest 1,000 mana orbs, but his practice was interrupted by Minshul, who was surprised to see how Kim was able to make mana orbs, something that apparently isn't usually easy. The old man asked him what his objective was with his granddaughter, and at the same time launched himself to attack him. Meanwhile, the girl was waiting for him quietly in her house, until one of the servants told him that the old man was in his academy, so he flew away. In the place, Minchul didn't stop attacking Kim, thinking he was hiding something. Seeing that talking wouldn't help, Kim decided to take the opportunity to confront the famous sword saint. The old man launched a great attack that he could barely block. Kim responded but to no avail, almost being defeated. The young man managed to fill his spear with mana and make his attack, which barely managed to make a scratch. Minchul quickly hid behind Kim and asked why the old man wanted to beat her up. Kim explained that she would explain everything soon, so they stayed alone with her grandfather to discuss. It was then that Minchul discovered that every time Kim Kim had a new student, her grandfather would come and scare them away. This time, however, he was firm with Minchul, telling him not to separate from Kim. Listening to all this left Minchul surprised. He remembered how long ago Seonyun had been orphaned because of her father had died in a dungeon. That's why he had promised to make her a strong person, even if it wasn't the way she wanted. But now, after a long time, he had revealed himself. The next day, Kim learned about all this, so she decided to talk to the old man. Minchul believed him, but he wasn't surprised to see the protagonist's talent. For that reason, he decided to accompany him to his training to find out how he did it. But he ended up even more shocked when he saw Kim spending a lot of time on his cell phone with the screen off. Thinking that it was kind of a meditation, the old man offered to give him some lessons, but were refused. At that moment, Seonyun appeared, who was used to seeing him always with the cell phone. Minchul realized how well his granddaughter got along with the young man, so he began to feel a little jealous. But there was no time for that because one of his workers told him that the Order, a very important group, requested the presence of the Lord of Swords and surprisingly that of Kim. The girl deducted that the mysterious subject of the tournament had something to do with it. Mr. Kalia, one of those in command of the Order, predicted that the protagonist would not want to see him, so he proposed to give him $100,000 if he agreed. Later, Minchul and Kim attended to the meeting. While waiting for the mysterious subject, they discovered that not even the old man had met him in person. At that time, the mysterious Kalia appeared. But that's all the excitement we got for today. If you're wondering, the manhwa is still currently in chapter 16. I hope you enjoyed it, and that's all from me. Until next time.